It is the tragic year of 1985 for the video game industries of Europe and North America. A once multi-billion-dollar industry now crumbled to just a $100 million industry, all thanks to the stupid decisions of the people in charge of the industry. But one company from the distant land of Japan would rise from the ashes and bring hope to the industry once more. This was a grey behemoth known as the NES, or the Nintendo Entertainment System if you want to be fancy about it. Now, I don't know what the fuck the NES version is. I mean, I get that there are more versions than just one, but hey, I just don't understand. Anyway, you got two controller ports on the front here, which was actually a lot less than were on most consoles at the time. Most consoles had four controller ports. You have your power on and reset buttons here, fairly standard. It's actually pretty hard to take apart. You got your RF and your power source outlet here. Now I don't know what this is here. I mean, like, I know it's for AV, but I just don't know how it works. So yeah, that's something. But yeah, there's not really a lot to say about it. I mean, like, it's big, grey, and clunky, and mine obviously has, like, you know, got dirt on it over the years. So yeah, not really a lot to say about that one. But here's where the real innovation comes in. This is the NES controller. Now, what was so good about this is most controllers at the time were like joysticks, like this one here. So, you know, you didn't really know how you were supposed to hold them. Like, you know, you have a button, and, you know, you don't really know how you're supposed to hold it. It's very awkward to hold. Like, do you hold it like this, or do you hold it like this, or I don't know. Anyway, but along came Nintendo, and they completely eliminated that problem by creating something completely different. So there were two face buttons here, which was actually pretty unique for the time. Some controllers did have number pads, like the ColecoVision or the Intellivision, but most controllers were like the Atari 2600 controller. And you have a start and select button here, start button for pausing the games, which wasn't anything new, and the select button for God knows what else. But the D-pad here was the real innovative thing, because it allowed you to move more accurately on a 2D plane. And for the kind of games that the NES was going to have made for it, then this is the ideal controller it would have wanted. And I'll get onto that. But first, let's get onto the cartridge, the first aspect of the games. We're going to look at the physical. Now, first of all, these are not called cartridges, for the same reason that the NES was not called a video game console. But they were called video packs, and aside from that, they are just cartridges. But I'm going to show you the inside of the cartridge. Yeah, so there was a chip inside the cartridge called 10 NES Lockout chip, and this is known as the chip that saved gaming, for the simple reason that North America and Europe were going through the video game crash in 1983, and, well, it's a history lesson, so I'll cover it another time. But here you have, if you can see it, I mean, I don't know if you can or not, but there you have it, the official Nintendo seal of quality. That's how you knew the game was good. Didn't always mean it was good, but, I mean, I don't know actually what it was for. But this is the cartridge that came with most consoles. This wasn't actually the cartridge they originally packaged, but after a while, you know, this is probably the one people most remember. The Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt cartridge. And that just brings me on to the games. Now, Nintendo had these really rigid third-party policies when it came to developers. What these mean is that if you were a third-party developer looking to make games for the NES, then you had to, first of all, reach a minimum quality standard. Made sense. Second of all, you could only make 5 games a year, which is harsh. And then third of all, you were only allowed to develop games for the NES, which was, aside from being unfair, illegal. But while these third-party policies were harsh, they certainly had a great knock-on effect, because it forced developers to be really creative and make excellent games for the NES. While Nintendo knew they were more than capable of this, and thus they didn't follow their own policies, they made games like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda, which are still popular today. But third-party developers were well able to compete with that, thanks to these rigid policies which forced them to make the best games they possibly could. Konami put out games like Contra and Castlevania. Mega Man 2 and DuckTales were made by Capcom. And companies like Sunsoft put out Batman and Sky Kid, all on the NES. Some of these were arcade ports, some of them were beat-em-ups, but they were all very similar. Aside from The Legend of Zelda, all the games I've mentioned are side-scrollers. Yeah, and the side-scroller genre was pretty much the staple for the NES. The new hardware, including the D-pad on the controller and the more advanced graphics processing unit, allowed for faster gameplay, thus enabling people to create the side-scroller genre. And when Super Mario Bros. Hit the scene, everyone wanted to do it. And because of that, while we did get our fair share of duds on the NES, we also got some excellent classics, such as the ones I've just mentioned. And they still hold up today, and while you might not think of much of them now, you have to look back to 1985 or 1986 or 87, or you get the picture, when these games came out. These were some of the most revolutionary games of all time, and some of them are still pretty fun to play today. For instance, Contra is one of my favorite games of all time, and Castlevania on the NES is one of my favorite Castlevania games. Overall, because of these games, Nintendo's system was made great, and it surely elevated them above the rest of the competition. The Sega Master System and Atari 7800 couldn't compete simply because of all these great games Nintendo were getting. And when you're winning because of games, let me tell you, it's the best way to win, despite the fact that Nintendo did blatantly break the law. And so that's pretty much it for the NES. A great console with great games that's always going to be remembered in history as the console that saved gaming, regardless of whether it did or not. And with the mini NES coming out later this year, you may want to consider buying it. Let me tell you what it is. Well, it's a little tiny NES if you can't really figure it out. But there's going to be 30 games already available on the system. You just buy the game, or you buy the system, there's 30 games on it, you just play any of the 30 games you want. And I've seen the list of 30 games that are on it. It's excellent. I would really consider buying it if I wasn't collecting myself. And if you're not into collecting but you want to play the NES, then this is a great place to start, without using emulators. I've been the man with a plan. Thank you for watching my video. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, and then subscribe to my channel. And tune in next time where I'm going to be reviewing an NES game that I didn't actually mention. This one.